friends, this is Bijou Baker. I'm Maria. Happy Mother's Day to all of my friends out there. Oh, you asked what did I do in my quarantine time? I've laid out my chef's coat. And I'm thinking, I have all these other colors. I should probably do the same. I won't. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, so today we're going to make chocolate souffle. Already, please don't let the word intimidate you. It doesn't mean anything but poof. We're going to make a chocolate poof. And it's harder to mess up than you think. Back in the day where, oh, don't open the door, you'll ruin the souffle. This is not the world we live in anymore. And the recipes then weren't as sturdy. This one is pretty sturdy, and there's something in this one that you don't see in many of them, but that's the trick that's going to keep it up and rising. So you're going to need ramekins. You could make a great big one, but the bigger they go, that's when you're going to start getting tricky. If back in the 50s they did souffles in individuals, rather than the larger pot, larger quart size thing, they look great, but that's when it gets a little tricky. These aren't tricky. Here's a list of ingredients. So this is done in stages. And so anytime you bake and you keep that in mind, you're ahead of the game. This recipe calls for 2 egg yolks and 3 egg whites, and they're going to be used at separate times. You know, it's kind of interesting with eggs. For my baking, I always use the jumbo eggs because I got more richness in the egg yolk and more volume in the egg white. These are not the jumbo, which it doesn't matter. Let's say you absolutely want the jumbo volume, then just get another smaller egg. Precise baking is done by weights and measures. So they would say, instead of, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it's just the ballpark. Instead of saying, 2 egg whites, they would say, 15 grams or whatever it is. It's like, what? So we're going with, we're not that precise, even though it's a souffle and you think you have to be. Okay, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to butter and sugar my ramekins. Now, the butter is going to, obviously for greasing. The sugar, it's kind of cool because as it bakes and it goes higher and higher, it's kind of like on the sides, it's kind of clinging to the sugar to get higher and higher. Kind of weird, but it does work. When it's all done, you'll have a lip about maybe 1/4 inch or so, depends on how much they rise. And that's the cool part about it. So the first thing is buttering and then sugaring. And the cool thing about this is like when you're getting to the bottom and you get just that little bit of sugar granules, they just crunch so nicely. Can't wait for you to try this. Okay, I have a cut, so obviously I don't want to get into that. Plus, it's kind of nice to use gloves for this part because it's a bit messy. You can use a brush, a pastry brush, but I'm not gonna lie, this is just as fine. And you just wanna grease it and get all the way, even though we're gonna scrape this off, we wanna get all the way up here. And this is the dish you're going to present in, so you kind of want to keep it as clean as possible and as pretty as possible. So, I don't know, can you see? It's not incredibly, let me do it this way. It's not incredibly buttery, but it's definitely wet. So, because my hand's messy, I'm just going to continue. Okay, so when I say you need some butter and you need some sugar for this, I'm gonna have you just decide how much you want to use. I just have a scooper here. I'm gonna put it in here, but then I'm gonna transfer it to each ramekin. Okay, can you see how dusted it is? It's perfect. I'm going to continue with the others. Okay. All right, these get put to the side. On to the good stuff. Okay, now we're going to take a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of flour, and we're going to make a roux. This part is not something you see a lot in soufflés, but this is a part of what's going to give it that great stability. While that's melting, I want to go over chocolates with you. You want a dark chocolate for this. Milk chocolate just doesn't taste the same, and I love milk chocolate. The dark chocolate, when I use it, especially if it's darker, I gotta sweeten it because I don't like that sharp, bitter chocolate taste. This has enough sugar in it to balance out perfectly, so I get the luxury of the milk chocolate with the sharp flavor of the dark chocolate. So on a note, if you like eating it just as it is off the bar, then you're gonna love it in here. Okay. So this is just a roux, and I'm toasting the flour just like I do with gravy or any other blonde sauce. And off to the side, I'm going to combine my heavy cream and my milk. This part you can do earlier. Now, speaking of doing things earlier, this is a dessert you want served warm, right out of the oven. It's very similar to a lava cake where the inside is still soft and gooey and runny. That's very similar, but this has the cake part itself, or the souffle part itself, is just like billions of little bubbles and nice and airy. So if you wanted to do this for mom's dinner, you can do all of this part ahead of time. You can even do it like an hour or the night before ahead of time. Bring it up to room temperature. Not this part, I mean when the chocolate sauce is done. I'll remind you what part. Okay, so in is going to go the cream. This is not going to be thick like the gravy, but it's definitely going to stabilize it and make it firm. Okay, and just before it starts to bubble, I'm going to add the sugar. So now this is nice and hot. I'm going to pour it right into the chocolate. I don't want it to boil, but I want it to move around. Okay, so I can see it moving and I can see the bubbles trying to come up. So I'm going to turn off the power. That's a nice sound. And pour it right into the chocolate. I'm going to add the coffee and the vanilla. And I'm going to let it sit for just a couple minutes while I clean this up. In a larger bowl, I'm going to put my egg whites and then my egg yolks in here. And you do want to separate them because we're going to make meringue. If there's any egg yolk in the meringue, it's not going to rise. For me, this is the absolute best tool there is. And it's free. Messy? That's all right. Wrong one. That would have made a mess because it was about to crack. Oh, that's beautiful. It didn't get in there. So for the record, and so you're not, hard on yourself, that's a pretty tricky step. I mean, it doesn't always work out perfectly for me either. So sometimes the yolk just breaks. Don't worry so much about it. It's okay. All right, so we're going to mix this up. And I also put my salt in here. I did after I turned off the camera. Sorry. All right, I'm going to put in the eggs. And I'm going to put this aside and let this cool. In the meantime, I'm going to whip up my egg whites with a touch of creamer and tartar. Now, this is another one of those tricks that's going to help it stabilize and stay firm so it won't sink. Okay, if I hadn't set it already, set your oven to 350. All right, and then just whisk. All right, we want stiff peaks. That's not going to do it. This is another trick. You want them stiffer than you might think. So keep going. That's good. All right. And we're going to wash these because we're going to use them to whip up some cream. Okay, remember when I told you I would let you know the part that you can do ahead of time? This is it right here. At this point, you can cover it, put the plastic wrap right on top of the chocolate, and then cover the whole thing again in plastic wrap. You can do this a week ahead of time if you want to. But once your dinner is done, and like I say, you want to serve this hot, once your dinner is done, let mom sit for a bit and come back and finish it up here, and you'll do this part from this part on to finish it. And it's not that hard or that long. You've already done the ramekins, and you can do that, you know, a day before. It doesn't matter there either. All right, so we've got this yummy chocolate, and we're going to just scoop in some of the meringue. And you do want a more gentle fold. So I'm going to add a couple of spoonfuls of meringue here because I want to temper the chocolate. It's not completely cool to the touch, but it's okay. It's not gonna, you don't want it so hot that it breaks the meringue. And I gotta tell you, this is a really fun dessert to make. I believe, watch me get it wrong now, but I believe these ramekins it's an 8-ounce ramekin. This is going to make more than enough, and actually might make enough for a couple others. So I'll keep that in mind and pick a lucky neighbor. All right, so you get this part. Let me just finish this up so you don't get bored. Okay, now I'm going to pour this into the bigger bowl. You know, it's that little bit of chocolate. Anytime I make anything with chocolate, that little bit of coffee I meant. Anytime I make chocolate, I really want to try to use some sort of coffee because the two beans just work so well together. So what we want to do here is we want to fold it without whisking it. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to break up that meringue. So I'm spreading it here, but that's because I want to get rid of all of this. You don't want any stripes in it. Maybe you do, I don't know. I don't. All right, that's good. Now we're going to fill the ramekins. You will definitely want to clean the edges. Like I said, this is where it's going to be presented, so you want to make it look pretty. I probably should have just got a scooper, measuring cup or something. So I'm taking it all the way to the tip top, okay? This part will be cleaned off. And before I go on to the next step, I'm going to just fill these up because the next step is pretty crucial. Okay, so I cleaned off the edges of the ramekin. Now, this is the part that's going to really help raise it, okay? Again, I have a cut, so I didn't want to stick my finger in this, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to stick your finger and you're going to make a moat. I should get a paper towel because this is going to get messy. All right, so you're going to take your thumb right into that little lip that was there and just ring it all around. Now, awkwardly, I'm going to start, let me do it this way. I think this view is better for both of us. So I'm in an awkward position here because I don't want to have to take my thumb out. So I want to do one clean swoop right along the edge. Okay, that's what you want. You want that little moat. As I'm turning, I'm grabbing it with my fingernail and my thumb. And don't be afraid to go in pretty deep. I'll tell you, it's really cool when you see it come out of the oven. Speaking of which, the oven's ready. All right, so into the oven they go for 15 minutes at 350. Okay, in the meantime, while that's baking, 15 minutes at 350, we're going to make the whipped cream topping, the sweet whipped cream. Let me just give you a quick hint on sweet whipped cream. It's always going to be whipped cream and sugar. A touch of vanilla if you want to. If you want to add mint or something else, that's entirely different. But the base will always be heavy cream and sugar. For this, it's just, I'll say about a cup. And it really doesn't matter. I don't have to measure it because I'm just going to balance out the sweet taste to the cream. That's it. So as this is building, I'll slowly pour in the sugar. For this particular dessert, you want more of a dollop as opposed to a poof. So you don't want it super, super whipped. That's good. I'm going to go a little bit more because this will be on the hot dessert and it will kind of just melt into the pocket. Ugh, I just can't wait. I'm going to whip it a little bit more. Okay, seriously, are those amazing or what? Look at how high that lip is. That is great stuff. From here on out, you want to get ready to just start to plate it. So I'm going to make room, push these aside so I can do one at a time. Okay, so I have the plate that I'm going to rest it on, and the best way to handle these things is with a dish towel. Don't try to use a prongs or gloves or any. This for me that is what's always worked. It goes right in the middle and it gets covered covered with powdered sugar. The fun thing about this dish is that it even gets on the plate, which kind of looks cool. And I want a good coating. All right, with this, I'm gonna scoop out smack dab in the center. Oh, it said hi to me. And I'm gonna replace it with a dollop of this sweet cream. Okay, would you give that to Mom? I'll tell you what, Mom would devour this. Look at that. Look at how light that is. That had a good lift to it. Now, it's sinking into there, which is just heaven. So let me get rid of this and just dig in, because you know that's what I do. Okay, well, don't hate me. That should be against the law. I have to say, this is the absolute best chocolate souffle I have ever had. It's not terribly hard to do. And once you have everything in order, you're set. Oh my gosh, please try this. You will be so happy you did. One note, because these are meant to be served warm, as they sit, they will sink. Don't worry about that. The flavor doesn't change a bit. I've even had them when they're cold. Put a lid on it and took it out for a late night snack, and I was one happy girl. So if they sink, when they've set a while, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Don't panic about that. That was so good. Okay, that's it. That's the chocolate souffle. Okay, my friends, until next time, happy baking.
Ah, that was fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe.